Obermann is a Mandarin and English-speaking environmental photographer based in Chengdu, China. He's originally coming from the United States. His photography specializes in telling the human story behind conservation. These pictures highlight the work and lives of forest rangers protecting nature reserves, national parks, and wildlands. Over the years, Obermann has stayed in China, allow him to explore so much of what is unexpected, unseen, and unknown about this country. He's seen so much more than any search engine or news media can deliver. But due to the global pandemic, he's stranded at home in the U.S. and unable to continue his exploration of nature for the time being. Earlier, I caught up with him to find out more about his stories of exploring in China and his experience of social distancing at his Austin home. And now I'm joined from Austin, Texas by Kyle Obermann, environmental and adventure photographer. Kyle, good to see you. How are you?
Yeah, good to
waving.
Hear your voice again.
I really wish to see you here in China, but apparently you were stranded inside Austin, Texas.
Yeah, no hot pot, but I'm doing my best to, to survive.
What do you mean by doing your best? Tell me more about how you spend your day, as an explorer, staying at home.
Yeah, I never thought that when I was 28 I would move back in with my parents, but yeah, that's kind of been the situation over here. So I'm at my mom, my dad's house in Austin. It's where I grew up. So I have a lot of high school friends, but I don't get to see them either, so it's too bad. So every day, I basically stay at home. I do work remotely and catching up on a lot of video editing projects and photo editing and writing that I haven't had time to do, which is actually a good thing and a positive thing. It's giving me time to do that. And then I'm also doing some more time with my hobbies, like running and reading. And now I've even done some painting, actually, some painting of maps of China as well. So, just trying to stay busy and find unique ways to keep engaged.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm sure you missed the wilderness. I mean, you've been trying to present to the rest of the world something about China that a lot of people have never seen, the wild China. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I've been in China for 5 years, over 5 years now. And, when I first got to China, I was blown away by the nature that I saw, both in my Chinese friends' photography and when I started hiking. And I realized that there wasn't a narrative about, Chinese natural beauty or wilderness that was being told in the United States, when in reality, at least half of very, very wild, with very, very little people living in it. And so for me, that became a narrative that wasn't being told. And, I made it kind of my mission to tell it, and not just to, show people beautiful pictures, but also to help inspire people to realize that these places need to be enjoyed and protected and preserved and valued.
Right.
And China has places at least as beautiful as America or Russia or Europe. It has the Xinjiang, like Grand Canyon, in China.
Yeah.
And the, Himalayas. So it's just beautiful.
I have mouth-watering when you talk about all of these sceneries, because I've been staying in Beijing for the past 4 months. I can't move because of the, the COVID-19. But maybe you can help us to go through some of the places you just mentioned. Let's start it from the Gongga Mountain you told me many times about, where you started your wilderness exploration in China.
Yeah, so the Gongga Mountain, that is the highest mountain in Sichuan. And it's one of the highest mountains in the world outside of the Himalaya and the Karakoram. So it's a very, very special mountain just because it's so prominent and, it's very far away from the other big peaks of the world. And, it's kind of a special meaning for me because that was the first mountain that I hiked around in China. And when I was a student at Peking University, I skipped class to go do it. But I told my professor, and she was okay with it. I was lucky to get away with it, but she knew that my dream was to go take these photos and experience China that way, and she actually let me go. So I'm very indebted to her as a teacher
Why is it, the wilderness? I mean, you have wilderness everywhere. Why wilderness in China that is so special to you? You had asthma the first time you came to China.
Yeah.
You couldn't bear with the smog, but you came back 1 year later, totally, in a way, amazed by the sceneries and also the wilderness. Tell me more about that.
I did get asthma from trying to run in Beijing when I was there, in my first time, and that was 6 years or so ago, 7 years ago. So it was much worse back then. And then I was very frustrated. I was very frustrated. But that's when I came back, and I did realize that there is this other side, like Western Sichuan or Qinghai. And then I got frustrated because I realized that, I only thought that China was Beijing. And, in the news, I only thought that China had bad air. But I realized, no, that's not, that's not the truth, right? There is some of it. It is in some of the big cities. But as soon as you start going outside, even out of Beijing, into the Taihang Mountains outside of Beijing, you have incredible fall colors like the northeast United States. You have the Chinese northern leopard habitat on Hebei, and at the border of Beijing. There's leopards, I mean, people don't know this. But it's when you think about it, it blows your mind. Like there are leopards outside of Beijing, and that's their historical habitat. So these stories, I just think it's more of like storytelling justice in a way. It's more just trying to balance the equation of this is also there, and not only is it very beautiful, but there are local Chinese people protecting these places. And for me, that is also an incredibly valuable undertold story.
Right.
There are locals in these villages, and they're giving their lives to protect these amazing wilderness areas. If we didn't have them, they are the first line of protection.
Mm. The Hengduan Mountain is your favorite. You even promised me once we were having coffee in downtown Beijing that you're going to take me to one of those, wonderful places in Hengduan Mountain. Tell us more about that. I want to have maybe a huge team following you next time.
Yes, well, you're welcome to come. The Hengduan Mountains, I think, is special for many reasons. One, it's a biodiversity hotspot, both for China but the entire world. For example, the concentration of mammals and bird life is incredible.
这是中国的横断山脉，它们横跨整个江区的东部。
It's also the only place in the world where pandas and snow leopards share the exact same habitat. So on the exact same trail, you might have a camera. In fact, in Wolong Nature Reserve, they've taken pictures of a snow leopard and a panda going through the exact same spot at a different time. So the biodiversity is the only type of it in the entire world. So that's very unique. And then I think just the natural beauty of the Hengduan, speaks for itself in the pictures and images. But because of the natural beauty and the biodiversity, you have, I think, a really growing movement of local conservation groups and peoples that are centered around the Hengduan, from the south in the Galdigong Mountains, where there are gibbons, and I think 700 species to 500 species of birds, to the Giant Panda National Park, which is mostly in the Hengduan Mountains.
You talk about conservation. This is what you've been doing besides being a natural life explorer and also photographer. You've been trying to running mini marathon or ultra marathon, shall I say, while at the same time trying to do some conservation work. How you manage to put all of these ideas together? Is it possible?
Well, it's I think it's only as possible as you keep on trying to do. But I think, for me, I've always thought of as photography or conservation as its value as in not just how beautiful a picture is, but how it's used. I think you can take an amazing photo, but if it's not seen or used, then I don't think it has much value in that sense. So for me, as a photographer, I'm thinking of, okay, I've taken these photos now, can I just give them to the NGO? Maybe they don't have a budget to pay for the photos, but how can I maybe partner with a Chinese corporation and do corporate social responsibility with them, for them to support me, for me to basically freely support an NGO that may not have the budget to have the video or the photography. So that's one aspect of, opening up resources to groups that may not have them. And with the ultra marathons, yeah, I last year I achieved the fastest known time around an ultra marathon around the Minyakonka route, which is a 5-day hiking route. Thanks. Yeah, it was amazing. It was a 5-day hiking route, and I did it in a little over 10 hours running. So the whole way I was picking up trash, and for me, I wasn't trying to highlight how much trash there was. I was trying to highlight the fact that we had the ability to do something about it. If you're gonna hike it in 5 days with a horse team, you can pick up some trash too. Because if I can run it and pick up trash and carry it on my back running in a day, we can all pick up a couple pieces when we're hiking. So and that was actually quite well received by a lot of locals and hikers, and it was really encouraging.
It's amazing what you've been trying to do, but at the same time, in some of the articles you wrote a few years earlier, I noticed a sense of frustration in a way that why people only go there for exploration, for appreciation of the beauty without really trying to conserve the nature, to protect the nature. You've been asking once and again, very loudly, in fact, clearly in those articles.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, connecting the dots between communities, especially the outdoors community and the conservation community. I actually gave a TEDx in Chengdu last summer about this topic.
Yes.
I think you need to focus on an audience when you're talking about conservation. Focus on, don't just try to talk to the masses. Focus on business people or the outdoors community, and that's what I'm focusing on. Because we're the people who are outside the most. We are enjoying the outside. It's our hobby. It's our sense of freedom. So it only makes sense to try to preserve it for the next generation, right? If we enjoy climbing glaciers, on mountains or seeing them, then we should be the ones leading the fight to cut down our personal, carbon footprint, because we want our next generation to have the same resource. We want the next generation to be able to enjoy the same campsite trash-free. I think the biggest responsibility is on the people who are enjoying it, and we also have the responsibility to support the locals. The locals, they're outside even more than we are, and I don't think we see them or include them in our outdoor community. But I think it's time that we do see them as part of our community, and we support them how we can, whether it's awareness or funding or safety training, etc.
You should tell me more about the locals, because you've been telling me stories about two gentlemen you met. One is in Gongga Mountain, who has been spending his very small amount of income on building, very traditional trash treatment facilities around different places in Gongga Mountain. Another is a gentleman in Hengduan Mountain who you followed in order to explore the mountain. Tell me more about them and how you interacted with them.
Yeah, so Pachu is the first one, and he is a native Tibet. He's a Tibetan, so he lives in Kangding in Sichuan, and he's actually a manager of a hostel. And yeah, so he uses part of his, profit from the hostel to build, basically stone trash collection pits on the campsites around this trail. And also, he has used his money to organize, trash pickups where they actually take in horse teams to collect and pick up the trash from horses and bring them back out to a massive 18-wheel truck where they can put it in bags on the bed of the truck. And it's a very inspiring story, but it's not an isolated incident. There are other some group of Chinese photographers from Chengdu, and they do the same thing in other parts of that area. They organize. They guide tours in that area for photographers, but sometimes they will just guide people just to pick up trash from some of those beautiful photography sites.
Hengduan Mountain, how about that? Because you were following a local team, right, to explore the mountain, and you saw how they use their limited resources and yet in a very efficient way try to conserve the nature. Tell me more about that. Everything you tell is so fresh to me, I want to hear all of this.
Yeah, well, hopefully you can come too. But I think it's one of the most special places to me. Oh, there's a couple. I mean, I've been to a lot of places in Hong Kong, but I think one of them is in the Gaoligong Mountains in Yunnan, and that is the southern tip of the Hong Kong Mountains. And there are a couple rangers there. One is named Tai Hong, and he is about he's not 50, but he's approaching 50 years old, and he's been working as a forest ranger for 25 years. When he first started, he was making around 200 renminbi per month, which is hard for us to imagine now. And but he has basically been doing it out of a commitment and love for his mountains. And now I think he makes around 2,000 RMB a month, which is still, in Beijing standards, that's not rent for a lot of people. But he's doing it in one of the most biodiverse areas of China, and he spends about 25 to 28 days a month living on the mountain with no cell phone service, in kind of a constructed like wooden cabin. And every day he goes out to prevent poaching and to study the wildlife, primarily being the Skywalker gibbon, which was only discovered as a new species in 2017. And he works with scientists from Sun Yat-sen University in Guangdong to study the gibbon and be their guide, and also make sure that its livelihood is protected. So and he actually just won an award. Last year he won the award, the Forest Ranger of the Year award by the Paradise Foundation.
Yeah.
And he got it from Jack Ma. Jack Ma gave him the award. It was pretty cool.
Kyle, I've always wondered from the very beginning, what inspired you to go along this road? I mean, you are well educated. You are not like a rich kid and you can do whatever you want. You try to make a very simple living by being a nature explorer, a photographer. I don't even know how you survive now, staying at home for that many months, without doing your work. So what really drives you all the time to be able to do all of this? I think it's amazing.
I think it's just, I measure, I guess, my value as the impact I make, not the money I make. And for me, I think I'm very lucky. I think I found a life mission quite early on. And for me, that life mission is to both change people's perspectives about Chinese nature and wilderness, and then to do everything I can to support the locals who are protecting it, because I don't see the locals getting the attention or the resources that they could use. I think 2,000 renminbi a month is not enough, and I'd like to see more corporations, more people supporting them and their work.
This is COVID-19. We're still in the middle of it. We don't know much about this virus. There might be coming back. In the United States, the number is still rising. So this gives a lot of thoughts for all of us about what kind of life we want and what's important about life. Your thoughts? For me, on a broader term, I hope it really gives people a wake-up call to show the power of nature, and how we need to prepare for it and respect it. Maybe that can give us a glimpse for the future, that if we as humans work together more and reduce our impact on the earth, we can have a much better future and to live harmoniously with nature. So I think that's my personal hope for all of this. And then personally for my lifestyle, I think it just shows how short time is sometimes. And I think we have to value where we are when we are, because we don't know when things will change. I think not taking for granted my lifestyle. I won't take it for granted when I go back. I'll see how special it is now, because you never know when things will, may turn out to make things more difficult. The story of Kyle Obermann, the environmental photographer from the United States, and who has his love for the great nature here in China. And that's all we have for today's edition of our program. If you'd like to see more, you can certainly search World Insight or check out our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter and Facebook accounts. I'm Tian Wei on behalf of the team. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.